I was halfway through a frozen dinner when my phone lit up with my father's name, and for about 2 seconds I thought he had finally learned how to send a picture by accident again. The television was on low across the room. Local news had been repeating the same careful language for most of the evening. Public safety incident, aggressive patients, stay indoors, avoid downtown corridors, law enforcement responding. It sounded controlled if a person only listened to the anchors. It looked different in the footage behind them. Smoke over the interstate, ambulances parked at wrong angles, police backing away from people instead of moving toward them, helicopter video cutting out whenever the camera got too close to the crowds. I wiped sauce off my fingers and answered, "Dad?" He didn't say hello. He never did when something bothered him. "You watching this garbage?" he asked. His voice came through steady, irritated, familiar. Arthur Voss, 68 years old, retired diesel mechanic, widower, owner of a 1-story house on 3 acres outside a town most people passed without learning its name. He had survived layoffs, a garage fire, 2 floods, my mother's cancer, and every kind of television panic that had come across basic cable since the 90s. He trusted weather reports when rain already hit his porch. Everything else had to earn its place in his head. "I'm watching," I said. "Are you inside?" "I'm in my kitchen. Where else would I be?" "Good. Lock the doors." He made a disgusted sound. "Cole, I'm not locking my doors because some city hospital lost control of junkies. They're not saying junkies anymore. They're not saying anything useful. That's the problem." On the television, a reporter stood in front of a hospital entrance with a police line behind her. Her face stayed professional, but her hand kept going to her earpiece. A man in a reflective vest walked past the background, turned, and ran. The camera pulled away before anything else happened. "Dad," I said, "where exactly are you hearing this from?" "Radio. News. Bobby Crane called from the feed store. Said people are already buying everything that isn't nailed down. Same nonsense every time there's a storm. Bobby's town is 12 miles from you. And nobody there has ever handled anything without making it worse." I muted the television and stood there with the phone pressed hard to my ear, staring at the old framed photo over my small dining table. Dad, Mom, and me at Lake Erie when I was 9. Mom in a red windbreaker, Dad with a cooler in one hand, me holding a fish too small for the picture he took anyway. That photo had moved with me through 3 apartments. Dad still had the original in his hallway, sun-faded and crooked, because he refused to fix a nail hole unless the wall fell open. "Listen to me," I said. "Pack your medicine, your wallet, your papers, and the photo box from the closet. I'm coming." "No, you're not. I'm already getting my keys." "Cole, sit down." "No." He went quiet. That was worse than him arguing. Silence meant he was deciding how much authority he could still pull over me through a phone line. "You live 2 hours away on a good night," he said. "There are wrecks everywhere. They're telling people to stay home. So stay home." "You just said the news is garbage." "It is when it's trying to scare people. It's not garbage when it tells my son not to drive through a mess for no reason." "That's convenient. Don't get smart. Then don't make me treat you like a child." The words left my mouth too fast. I heard his chair scrape across his kitchen floor. I pictured him at the table under the yellow light, radio on the counter, coffee mug beside him, one sock sagging at the ankle because he never threw anything away until it failed in public. He said, You're not coming here to rescue me." "Yes, I am." I didn't ask. You never ask. That's the problem. Outside my apartment window, traffic had started building on the avenue below. Not normal traffic. Too many horns, too many people cutting across the turning lane. A sedan pulled into the gas station on the corner and stopped sideways by the pumps. A woman got out with 2 plastic jugs and waved at another driver who was blocking her. Dad said, "I've got food. I've got a generator. I've got water in the basement. I've got tools. This house is better than that shoebox you rent." This isn't about the house. It is if you're trying to drag me out of it. A second alert hit my phone while he was talking. County emergency notification. Shelter in place. Avoid travel. Lock doors. I report violent illness to authorities if safe to do so. Do not approach injured persons without protective equipment. The message listed affected areas. Mercer County was in the last line. My father's county. "Dad," I said, quieter now. "Your county just went under emergency warning." "I saw." "You saw?" It came through. "And you still think I'm not coming?" "I think you're going to get yourself killed on the road while I'm sitting here eating soup. Then be mad at me when I arrive. Cole, I'll call when I'm close. Cole, don't you hang up on me." I ended the call before he could make his voice softer. That was his last tool with me. Anger bounced off. Orders bounced off. But when he sounded tired, when he sounded old, when he sounded too much like the man who had sat in hospital chairs for 6 months and refused to cry where my mother could see him, I listened. I could not listen that night. I moved through my apartment fast and badly at first. I grabbed the wrong things, put them down, opened cabinets that held nothing useful, and cursed at myself in a low voice. Then I forced order into it. Backpack from the closet, 2 bottled waters, first aid kit from under the bathroom sink, flashlight, phone charger, battery bank, work gloves, a folding knife I used for boxes, a sweatshirt, socks, the cash envelope taped behind the junk drawer. I took the old tire iron from the hall closet because I had never found a better place for it after changing a flat last winter. In the kitchen, the frozen dinner steamed on the counter, half eaten. I looked at it. She almost laughed, then shoved 2 protein bars and a jar of peanut butter into the bag. The television was still muted. The anchor's mouth moved while the screen showed live traffic cameras. A line of red brake lights stretched toward the north end of the city. Another camera showed a ramp closed by police cars. Something moved through the stopped vehicles, too far away to identify. The feed cut to a graphic before the camera found focus. I called Dad again while I tied my boots. He answered with, "You better still be in your apartment. Get your medicine together." "I'm not doing this." "Then I'll do it when I get there." "You always think pushing harder is a plan." "No, I think waiting for you to admit a thing is real wastes time." That landed. He hated truth when it came from me and used his own words against him. I locked my apartment and took the stairs instead of the elevator. People were already moving through the building with bags and children and pets. Mrs. Delgado from the second floor stood by her door with her little boy in pajamas and a laundry basket full of canned food. She asked me what was happening. Her voice stayed low because her son was watching her mouth. "Stay inside," I told her. "Do not go downtown. Lock the door. Fill your bathtub with water." "Should we leave?" I almost said yes. I almost said no. Both answers could ruin her. "Not unless you know exactly where you're going," I said. She looked at my backpack and the tire iron in my hand. She knew what that meant. She did not call me out on it. The parking lot behind the building was full of headlights and people yelling into phones. A man in a business shirt was trying to strap a suitcase to the roof of a compact car with an orange extension cord. A woman backed into a trash bin, corrected, then drove over the curb without stopping. Somewhere several blocks away, sirens crossed each other and cut off one by one. My SUV was an old silver one with a cracked rear bumper and half a tank of gas. Half a tank had seemed fine at 6 o'clock. At 8:30, it felt irresponsible. I threw my bag into the passenger seat, started the engine, and checked the map on my phone. The direct route to Dad's town was already red in 3 places: interstate backups, reported collision, police activity, road closure near the river bridge. I knew the back route. Dad had taught it to me when I was 16 and missed a turn during a driving lesson. County roads, farm lanes, to one covered bridge, 2 miles of gravel, then the state highway that ran south of Pine Hollow. He had made me repeat the route until I could do it without help. At the time, I thought he was just being hard on me. That night, I hated how often his lessons were useful. The gas station at the corner was already losing order. Cars faced every direction. One pump had a plastic bag over the handle. A man banged his palm against the card reader. 2 teenagers ran out of the store with cases of water while the clerk shouted from behind the glass. I considered pulling in. I had half a tank, but half a tank had rules. Half a tank meant no wrong turns, no idling, no backtracking, no mercy for a man who would ask me to stop and help every stranger on the way. I drove past. My phone rang before I reached the first main intersection. Dad again. "You need to turn around," he said. "No. There's a wreck on Route 17. They said it on the scanner." "I'm not taking 17. "What are you taking?" "The old mill road." "That road floods. It hasn't rained in a week. It washes gravel loose anyway." "Dad, you hit that first bend too fast. You'll end up in the ditch." "I know the bend." "No, you know it from 20 years ago when I was beside you." The light ahead turned green. Nobody moved. A pickup sat in the intersection with both doors open. The driver was gone. A man in a hoodie stepped around it, looked into the cab, then hurried away when something slammed against the inside of a nearby minivan. I could not see what it was. I did not stop long enough to learn. "I'll slow down," I said. "Cole, listen to me for once. I am telling you not to come. And I'm telling you I'm coming." He said nothing for 3 full seconds. Then he said, "Your mother would hate this." That one made me grip the wheel until my knuckles went pale against the dashboard light. I kept my eyes on the road. I did not answer right away. The avenue opened near the old shopping plaza, and I took the service road behind the closed furniture store to avoid the light. "Mom would already be packed," I said. He hung up. I drove through the edge of the city with the radio off. I needed the road, not more voices. The first 10 miles were bad but still human. People were frightened, selfish, confused, and loud. Cars cut across lanes. Drivers ignored lights. A fire engine sat trapped in traffic with its siren silent because there was nowhere to go. A man in a bathrobe stood at a bus stop holding a cat carrier and a golf club. At one intersection, a police cruiser blocked the left turn lane, but no officer was inside. Someone had written "Go home" on the rear window with a marker. Past the warehouse district, the traffic thinned for half a mile. I used that stretch to call Dad again. No answer. I tried twice. The third time it went to voicemail. "This is Arthur. Leave it if it matters." His recorded voice sounded annoyed with the entire idea of voicemail. I heard the beep. "I'm on the way," I said. "Pack the medicine, the blue folder in your desk, Mom's photo box, warm clothes, shoes you can walk in. Don't argue with this message. Just do it." I ended the call and placed the phone in the cup holder with the screen up. The first abandoned cars appeared after the county line. Not wrecked, just left. A sedan on the shoulder with the trunk open and a stroller beside it. A delivery van in the median with its hazard lights blinking weakly. A motorcycle on its side near the guardrail. No rider, no helmet, no movement. I slowed down at each one, not enough to stop, enough to give myself space if a door opened or a person stepped out. That was the first rule I made for myself that night. Space before kindness. I hated the sound of it in my head. I obeyed it anyway. At the old Quarry turnoff, the map rerouted without asking. The highway ahead showed a closure now. I took the county road before the app could tell me to. The pavement narrowed. Houses sat farther back from the road. Porch lights were on in some places. In others, every window was dark. Twice I saw people loading trucks. Once I saw a family standing beside a mailbox, 3 adults arguing while 2 kids sat on suitcases in the grass. A woman raised her hand when I passed. I kept going. In the mirror, she stayed there with her hand up, then lowered it slowly. That image stayed with me for miles. I told myself I had one job, one person, one rescue. Every stop had a cost. That was true. It was also a clean way to excuse driving past people who needed help. Both things could be true at the same time. I understood that before the night was over. I did not understand how much it would matter. The fake police roadblock was set up where the county road dipped between 2 stands of trees. At first I believed it. 2 vehicles with flashing amber lights, orange cones, a folding barricade, a man in a dark jacket waving a flashlight. Another man stood near a pickup with a reflective vest over a sweatshirt. There was a third shape behind the pickup, but I could not make it out until my headlights crossed it. A woman sat on the ground with her back against the tire, arms around a backpack. Her face turned away from the light. I slowed to 20 miles per hour. The man with the flashlight stepped toward the center of the road and lifted his hand. Something was wrong. No marked cruiser, no uniforms, no county truck. The barricade had a rental company sticker on it. The cones were placed crooked. The man's flashlight beam kept dipping into my windshield, then down to my front bumper, then to the passenger seat. He was looking for more than danger. He was counting. I dropped the SUV into low gear and kept rolling. The man shouted, "Road's closed!" I pointed forward through the windshield and mouthed, "Where?" He came closer. "Stop the car." The second man moved toward my passenger side. His right hand stayed behind his hip. The woman by the tire looked up. Her eyes met mine for less than a second. She shook her head once. Small. Fast. I hit the gas. The man with the flashlight jumped back. The barricade struck my bumper and snapped sideways. One cone disappeared under the front tire. The SUV bucked, scraped, then cleared the roadblock. Something hit the rear side panel hard. A rock, maybe. Maybe a tool. I did not look back until I reached the next bend. In the mirror, the flashing amber lights shrank between the trees. One of the men stood in the road with both arms raised. The woman was no longer sitting by the tire. I could not tell if she had run or been pulled away. I kept driving. My phone rang again. "Dad," I answered on speaker. "You packed? Where are you? County Road near the quarry? You shouldn't be there." "I know." "What happened?" "There was a roadblock." "Police?" "No." He cursed under his breath. It was the first useful thing he had done since calling. "You hurt?" he asked. "No." "Car?" "Still moving." "Good, keep it that way." "Are you packed?" "No." I let the silence sit for one breath. Then I said, "Why?" "Because I'm not leaving yet." "Yet?" The county commissioner is speaking in 10 minutes? Dad, do you think the commissioner is going to come to your house and carry you out? I want facts. You want permission to stay. I want facts. The road curved hard left where the old mill creek ran under a stone culvert. I slowed more than necessary, partly because he had warned me, partly because my hands needed one small task I could finish correctly. Gravel popped under the tires. The SUV slid an inch, caught, and straightened. Your facts are on the road, I said. Cars are abandoned. People are robbing drivers. The highway is closing. Your county is under warning. What else do you need? I need to know if Ruth made it home. Aunt Ruth was not my aunt by blood. She had been Mom's closest friend, and after Mom died, she kept showing up at Dad's house with casseroles and church gossip he pretended not to enjoy. She lived 6 miles outside Pine Hollow, on the far side of town. Call her, I said. I did. No answer. Then leave her a message. She doesn't check messages. Dad. She came by this afternoon. Said she was going to the pharmacy and then home. If town's a mess, she could be stuck. I stared through the windshield at the dark road and understood the shape of the fight waiting for me. It was not just him refusing rescue. It was him trying to add names to the rescue until the rescue broke. I'm coming for you, I said. Not Ruth, not Bobby, not the whole town. You hear yourself? Yes. That woman sat with your mother every Tuesday for 4 months. I know what she did. And you're telling me to leave her? I'm telling you we cannot save people by guessing where each person might be. He made another sound, softer this time. Not anger, disappointment. I hated that one more. You sound different, he said. I'm driving through different. He did not answer. Pack, I said again. He ended the call. The road opened into farmland. The sky ahead had a low orange stain where Pine Hollow sat beyond the ridge. Not a sunset. Too late for that. Fire or emergency lights or both. I pressed harder on the gas until the SUV complained over the uneven pavement. 5 miles from town, I passed the first person walking alone. A man in a winter coat moved along the shoulder with no flashlight. He dragged one foot. His head angled down. At first I thought he was drunk or injured. Then my headlights reached him fully, and he turned toward the SUV too slowly. His face was pale with dark streaks around his mouth and chin. His eyes did not follow the vehicle right. His body did. He stepped off the shoulder into the road, both arms loose at his sides, then reached for the hood when I swerved around him. His palm slapped the rear window. I heard skin and glass. He disappeared behind me. I did not stop. I kept saying that in my head. I did not stop. I did not stop. I did not stop. There had been enough distance between us. He had been alone. I had gone around him cleanly. No guilt could change the math. Still, for the next mile, every fence post became a person until my headlights reached it. Pine Hollow's welcome sign had been knocked crooked. Somebody had driven through the flower bed around it. The sign still read, "Welcome to Pine Hollow, a good place to stay." The last word was split by a crack in the wood. The town was not gone. That almost made it worse. Gone would have been simple. Pine Hollow was half operating and half breaking. The gas station near the edge of town had every light on, but the store windows were smashed. Cars jammed the pumps. A man stood on top of a pickup bed shouting at people to back up. Nobody listened. Across the street, the pharmacy sign flickered. An elderly man pushed a shopping cart full of paper towels through the parking lot, while a woman screamed at him from a car. I rolled through without stopping. Dad's house was on the east side, 3 miles beyond town. past the church and the little cemetery where Mom was buried. I knew every turn. I knew the pothole after the second mailbox. I knew the drainage ditch Dad had complained about for 15 years. The closer I got, the more the road felt wrong. Too many parked cars by houses that never had company. Too many front doors open. Dogs barking from inside rooms. A smoke alarm chirping somewhere in the dark. Dad's driveway came up on the right. Gravel pale in my headlights. His porch light was on. His truck sat beside the garage. For 1 second, relief tried to make the whole trip feel justified. Then I saw the front door was open. I stopped hard enough for the backpack to slide off the passenger seat. I grabbed the tire iron and stepped out. The night smelled of smoke, cut grass, and something sour from the direction of town. A radio played inside the house. Dad's kitchen radio. Low voices, static. The porch boards creaked under my boots, each sound too loud. "Dad?" No answer. I moved through the doorway into the front hall. The house looked normal in the cruelest way. On his boots by the mat. The framed lake photo crooked on the wall. The old coat rack loaded with jackets he never wore. A stack of mail on the table. The lamp in the living room lit. The television off. "Dad?" "In here," he called from the kitchen. I almost yelled at him. I walked in instead. He was standing at the counter filling a thermos with coffee. Coffee. He wore jeans, a flannel shirt, and his old work boots. His gray hair was flattened on one side from the cap he had taken off and left beside the sink. On the table sat his pill organizer, wallet, one folded jacket, and a plastic grocery bag with canned soup in it. No suitcase, no documents, no photo box, no urgency. I stared at him. He looked me up and down, saw the tire iron, saw the dirt on my bumper through the kitchen window, and said, "You drove too fast." I shut the kitchen door behind me and locked it. "You didn't pack." "I put things on the table. That's not packing. I'm not leaving until I know what's happening." I laughed once, not because anything was funny. The sound came out flat and ugly. I drove through a fake roadblock. I saw a sick man walking in the road. Town is falling apart. Your front door was open. I was bringing wood in. "You left the door open during an emergency?" "For 2 minutes." "You can't think in old rules now." He set the thermos down too hard. "And you can't come into my house and start barking orders?" "Yes, I can." "No, you cannot." "Dad, look at me." He turned back to the counter. I stepped between him and the coffee maker, close enough that he had to face me. "I am not here for an argument. I am here because whatever this is has reached Pine Hollow. We have maybe minutes before the roads get worse. Get your medicine, get Mom's photo box, get the blue folder from the desk. We leave." He looked at me with that hard, narrow-eyed patience he used when I was 12 and trying to explain why a broken window was not my fault. "You done?" he asked. "No. I built this house. You bought this house. I fixed every inch of it. That doesn't make it safe. I have food here. Food doesn't drive. I have water. Water doesn't matter if people break in or sick people get through the door. I have a generator, which makes noise. I have tools. You can't repair this." That one landed too. He looked away first. The radio on the counter crackled. A recorded county message repeated in a calm male voice. Shelter indoors. Avoid contact with symptomatic persons. Await instructions from authorities. Do not attempt travel unless ordered. Dad pointed at it. "There. Authorities say stay. Authorities are not in your driveway. Neither is the end of the world." A crash sounded somewhere outside. metal on pavement. Then a dog barked twice and stopped. We both turned toward the back window. The yard behind Dad's house was dark except for the motion light above the shed. It clicked on while we watched. The light flooded the grass, the woodpile, the old bird bath Mom loved, and the wire fence separating Dad's property from the Keene place. A person stood at the fence. Mrs. Keene. She was in her robe, one slipper on, one foot bare. Her silver hair hung loose around her face. She clutched the fence with both hands and pushed at it without opening the latch. Her mouth moved, but the window blocked the sound. Dad moved first. "Ellen," he said, and headed for the door. I grabbed his arm. "Stop." He pulled free. "That's Ellen Keene. I see her. She's 82. She's outside in the dark during a county emergency. All the more reason to help." He unlocked the kitchen door before I could reach it. Cold air came in, carrying smoke and the distant sound of sirens. Dad stepped onto the back porch. "Ellen," he called. "You all right?" Mrs. Keene turned toward his voice. She did not answer. She pushed at the fence again, hands sliding over the wire. Her robe had dark stains down the front. I could not tell from what. I did not want to know. "Dad," I said. Back inside. She needs help. She needs distance." He started down the porch steps. I went after him and caught his sleeve. He jerked away with surprising strength for a man who complained about his shoulder every winter. "Don't you handle me?" he snapped. Mrs. Keene found the latch by accident or memory. The gate swung inward. She stepped through, stumbled, and came across the grass toward us. "Ellen," Dad called again. "Where's Frank?" At the name Frank, she made a sound. Not speech. A broken, wet groan that rose and fell without meaning. She reached both arms toward Dad. That stopped him. I saw him understand one piece of it, then reject it, then try to force the world back into shape through habit. "Ellen, honey, stop there," he said. "Just stop right there." She did not stop. I stepped in front of him and raised the tire iron sideways with both hands. I did not want to use it. I wanted her to be old and confused and sick in a way that still had rules. She came closer, feet dragging through the wet grass, eyes fixed past me toward Dad. Her jaw worked without words. Dad said, "Cole, don't. She's not right. She's sick. She's coming at you. She doesn't know what she's doing. That doesn't make it safe." Mrs. Keene reached the bottom of the steps. I backed up one step, forcing Dad back with my shoulder. She climbed the first step badly, knee hitting wood. Her hand shot out and caught my pant leg. Grip strong, too strong. I shoved her back with the tire iron across her upper chest. Not a swing, a push. She fell onto the grass and immediately tried to get up. Dad made a sound I had never heard from him. God help us. From the Keene house, something slammed against a window. Once, twice. A shape moved behind the curtains. Dad grabbed the porch railing and stared. "Inside?" I said. He did not move. "Dad, inside now." Mrs. Keene got one knee under herself. I hooked my hand around Dad's belt at the back and pulled. He stumbled, cursed at me, but he moved. I shoved him through the kitchen door and slammed it shut. Mrs. Keene hit the bottom step again before I locked the deadbolt. Dad stood in the middle of the kitchen, face emptied of argument. Outside, the motion light stayed on. Mrs. Keene reached the porch and pressed both hands against the glass pane in the door. Her fingers slid down slowly. She did not knock. She did not call out. She kept pressing. The radio repeated the shelter message. Dad whispered, "Frank must be inside. Do not start. He could be trapped. Do not start. Cole, no." That is not your neighbor asking for help. That is not a problem you can fix with a toolbox and a stubborn head. He turned on me then, anger rushing back, because anger was easier than looking through the door. You don't know that. I know she tried to grab me. I know she didn't answer her name. I know something is hitting their window. I know this is enough. He looked through the glass again. Mrs. Keene dragged one hand down the pane and left a smear. Dad closed his eyes for a second, then opened them and pointed toward the hallway. Blue folder is in the desk. Medicine is on the table. A photo box is in the bedroom closet. Go get shoes you can walk in. I have shoes. Laces tied, jacket, hat, gloves. I'm not helpless. Then stop acting slow. He glared at me. For 1 second, I thought he might refuse again, just to protect the last piece of authority he had. Then something hit the Keene window hard enough to break glass. The sound carried across the yard. Dad flinched toward it but stayed inside. 5 minutes, I said. He nodded once. We moved through the house without speaking. I went to the office first. The desk drawer stuck because it always stuck. I yanked it too hard and spilled envelopes across the floor. The blue folder was under a stack of old insurance papers, exactly where he said. I took it and swept the rest back without sorting. In the hallway, I grabbed the lake photo off the wall. The nail tore a strip of paint loose. Dad would have complained on any other night. In his bedroom, the closet smelled of cedar blocks and laundry soap. Mom's photo box sat on the upper shelf in a clear plastic bin. I took the whole bin. It was heavier than I expected. Not too heavy to carry, too heavy to be convenient. I carried it anyway. Dad was in the bathroom when I returned, dumping pill bottles into a canvas shaving kit. His hands were steady until he reached for the small bottle beside the sink. He stared at the label, then put it in the kit with the others. What is that? I asked. Blood pressure. You have enough? 30 days if I don't drop it. Good. He zipped the kit. We need the generator. No. It's portable. It weighs 100 pounds. 70. No. If we get stuck somewhere. We're already stuck here longer because you made coffee. He looked toward the kitchen. I softened my voice before he could harden his. Dad, we need to move. He opened the bathroom cabinet and grabbed a spare pair of glasses. Good choice. Then he tried to take the framed picture of Mom from the counter. I took it from him, removed the back, slid the photo out, and tucked it inside the blue folder. He stared at the empty frame in my hand. Less glass, I said. He nodded again, but his jaw worked as if he was chewing through words he refused to say. We made it to the kitchen with the folder, medicine, photo bin, 1 grocery bag, 2 jackets, and Dad's old shotgun case from the hall closet. I looked at the case. He looked back at me. It's unloaded, he said. That wasn't my question. I'm not leaving it for looters. It's another thing to carry. It goes. I wanted to argue. I also wanted something more serious than a tire iron if the roadblock men found us again. I pointed to the case. You carry it. If it slows you down, it stays. He accepted that too quickly, which told me he was more shaken than he wanted me to know. Mrs. Keene had wandered off the porch when we returned to the kitchen. The back step was empty. The motion light still burned over the yard. The gate to her property hung open. More movement showed near her house. 1 figure, maybe 2. I did not wait to count. We went out the front. Dad locked the door behind us. I said, "Leave it." He pulled the key anyway and tested the knob. Dad, it takes 1 second. It took 3. He ignored that and turned toward his truck. My SUV, I said. My truck has tools. My SUV has fuel. How much? Less than half. He stopped. How much less? Enough if we go now. That's not an answer. It's the answer we have. My truck's got a full tank. Of course it did. The man treated half a tank as failure and had told me that my whole life. His truck was old, loud, and useful. It also had one cracked side mirror, a starter that complained in cold weather, and a toolbox bolted in the bed. Does it run? I asked. He looked offended. Yes. Then we take your truck. He opened his mouth, ready to accuse me of changing plans too fast, then shut it and moved toward the driver's side. I drive, I said. The hell you do? You know the back roads. I need you navigating. I can navigate from the driver's seat. You also just tried to walk up to Mrs. Keene. He stopped again. The porch light cut hard lines across his face. He looked older there than he had in the kitchen. Not weak, not helpless. Just old enough that his habits had weight. He tossed me the keys. Scratch it and I'll haunt you, he said. That's the first smart plan you've had tonight. We loaded fast. Photo bin and folder behind the seat. Medicine in the glove box. Food on the floor. Shotgun case behind Dad's legs. My backpack between us. I left my SUV in the driveway with the bumper damaged and the passenger door unlocked. It bothered me more than it should have. That SUV had carried me away from this town when I left for work, college, and everything I thought made me separate from Dad. Now it sat abandoned beside his garage because I had come back too late and half prepared. Dad's truck started on the second try. He said nothing. I said nothing. The engine sounded too loud in the quiet road. We backed out with the headlights off until the truck reached the lane. Dad told me to turn them on after the mailbox. Why? Because anyone watching the house doesn't need to know which way we went. Good. Useful. My father was still in there under all the denial. I turned the headlights on near the first bend and headed away from Pine Hollow. Left at Parker's Field, Dad said. The highway is right. Highway runs past town. We need west. West is jammed. Take Parker's Field Road to the old feed route. Comes out near the church camp. Is it paved? Mostly. Mostly. It'll hold. We reached the turn. A wooden sign for Parker Family Farm leaned beside the ditch. I took the left. The road narrowed at once, pavement patched and broken, with trees closing over both sides. Dad leaned forward, one hand on the dashboard, eyes scanning every driveway and fence line. Slow after the mailbox with the eagle on it, he said. Big washout. You remember every bad piece of road in this county. I remember every place fools wreck. Same thing. He almost smiled. It vanished when the truck bounced over a rut. The first mile went clean. Then we came around a bend and saw brake lights ahead. 3 vehicles blocked the road near a narrow bridge. A minivan, a farm truck, and a small car with its front end against the guardrail. People stood in the road. A man waved both arms when he saw us. I stopped far back. Dad said, "Ixton, don't get close." I looked at him. Now you say that? Learning is allowed. The man in the road jogged toward us. He wore a brown jacket and had a little girl clinging to his left hand. Behind him, a woman tried to move suitcases from the minivan to the farm truck. Another man stood by the bridge with a flashlight pointed into the ditch. I lowered the window 2 inches. "Bridge is blocked," the man said. "Car spun out. We need help pushing." "How many people?" I asked. "What?" "How many sick people?" "None. It's just a wreck." Dad leaned across me. "Who's in the car?" "Nobody. It's empty. That made no sense. The car had hit the guardrail hard enough to bend the front wheel inward. The driver did not walk away unless somebody had taken him or he had walked away wrong. The little girl looked past us down the road, and her eyes widened. I checked the mirror. Headlights were coming from behind. Fast. Too fast for the road. "Move," Dad said. The man at my window said, "Please, we've got kids." The headlights grew larger. I had maybe 5 seconds to choose. Help with the bridge. Reverse. Drive into the shallow ditch beside the road. Stay and become part of the blockage. "Get your people off the road," I told him. "What?" "Off the road now." He turned, saw the headlights, and shouted. The woman at the minivan grabbed a child from inside. The other man near the bridge stepped backward. I drove into the ditch. Dad braced one hand against the roof. The truck dropped hard, tilted, and scraped brush along the passenger side. Mud sprayed the window. I kept the wheels straight and crawled forward along the ditch, parallel to the road. Behind us, the speeding vehicle hit the brakes too late. Tires screamed. The vehicle clipped the rear of the minivan and shoved it sideways. Metal folded. People scattered into the grass. The little girl screamed once, then her father pulled her down behind the farm truck. The speeding vehicle stopped at an angle. 2 doors opened. A man fell out on the driver's side and crawled away from the vehicle. The passenger did not fall. He lunged out and went after the nearest person with both hands raised. Dad said, "Go, go." I kept the truck in the ditch until the front tires climbed back onto the road beyond the bridge. The rear end fishtailed, caught the edge of the pavement, and slammed up hard enough to throw the shotgun case against Dad's shins. The engine stayed alive. In the mirror, the road behind us broke into flashlight beams and running shadows. The family by the minivan was still moving. I saw the father lift his daughter over the bridge rail to get her away from the road. I could not see more. Dad watched the mirror too. "You did right," he said. "Don't." "You did." "I drove away from a kid." "You warned them." "I drove away." "You had me in the truck." I hated how simple that sounded. I hated that it was the same rule I had made earlier. One job, one person, one rescue. But the rule felt different when Dad said it, because he had been the reason. We drove without speaking for several minutes. The feed route brought us out behind the church camp, just like Dad said. Cabins sat dark between the pines. The dining hall had one light on over the front door. A white van was parked halfway onto the lawn with its side door open. No people, no movement. I kept going. Dad picked up the radio handset mounted under his dashboard. I stared at it. "You still have a Citizens Band radio?" "Of course. Of course." He turned the knob. Static filled the cab. Then voices came through in bursts. "Not going through town. Repeat, not... Need fuel. Any station open west of... Bit my cousin, man. I swear he was dead. He was dead." Dad turned the volume down but kept listening. At the next intersection, I headed west. Dad said, "No, straight." West is that way. Ruth's road is straight. I hit the brakes. For a second, only the radio filled the cab. I turned to him slowly. "You navigated me toward Ruth?" "She's 6 miles. You used me. I know a route from her place to the ridge. You used me. I need to see if she's home." "No." "Cole? No, we are not doing this." "You would leave her?" "Yes." His face changed. There it was. The full disappointment. The old judgment. The man who thought duty meant adding weight until your back failed, then blaming yourself for not being stronger. "She was there for your mother," he said. "And I am here for you." "You think that washes it clean?" "No, nothing is clean tonight. She might be trapped. She might already be gone. She might be in town. She might be hiding in her pantry. She might be fine. We do not know. That's why we check. That is how we die." His hand closed around the shotgun case. I looked at it, then at him. "So do not make a point you can't take back." He removed his hand. The radio crackled again. A woman's voice came through, distant and shaking. "Pine Hollow Clinic is not safe. Do not come here. If anyone can hear me, do not come here. We have people inside who are sick, and the sheriff left 10 minutes ago. Please do not bring children here. Please." The transmission cut. Dad turned his head toward town, even though town was behind us. "Ruth's pharmacy is near the clinic," he said. That was not a reason to go. It was a reason not to. "We go west," I said. "She could have gone to the clinic." "Then she's not at home. You don't know." "I know enough." "You sound proud of that." "I'm not proud. I'm driving." I put the truck in gear and turned west. Dad reached over and grabbed the wheel. Not hard enough to crash us, but enough. The truck swerved toward the gravel shoulder. I slammed the brakes. The rear end slid. We stopped crooked in the road, dust rolling past the headlights. For 2 seconds, neither one of us moved. Then I turned the engine off and took the keys. Dad stared forward. "That was the dumbest thing you have done tonight," I said. He did not answer. I opened my door, stepped out, and walked around the front of the truck. I needed air that did not have him in it. I stood in the headlights, looking down the empty road. A farmhouse sat far off to the left with every window dark. Insects ticked in the grass. Somewhere back toward Pine Hollow, a siren rose, dipped, and stopped. Dad got out more slowly. "You done?" he asked. No. "You plan on lecturing me in the road?" "Yes." "Then make it fast." I walked to his side of the truck and stood close enough to make him look at me. "You are not the only person who loved Mom," I said. His face hardened at once. "Don't." "No, you used her on the phone. You used Ruth in the truck. You keep taking love and turning it into a reason to make bad decisions. You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. You want to stay because leaving feels like admitting everything is gone. You want Ruth because leaving one person behind feels worse than leaving a whole town behind. You want the house because Mom lived there. You want the roads to make sense because you know them. But none of that changes what is happening." His eyes stayed on mine. Behind the anger, I saw the part of him that had already seen Mrs. Keene at the glass and knew I was right. He said, "You think I don't know I'm old?" "No." "You think I don't know what it means when my own son drives 2 hours through hell to carry me out?" "I'm not carrying you. Feels like it. Then walk faster." For a moment, that almost broke him into a laugh. It did not last. He looked down the road toward Ruth's turnoff. "Your mother would want me to check. Mom would want you alive. She would want both. She doesn't get to want both tonight." That hurt him. I saw it. I also knew he needed to hear it exactly that way. A noise came from the field beside us. Grass moving, not wind. Something pushing through it. Dad turned. I unlocked the truck and opened his door. "Get in." He hesitated. The grass moved again, closer. She saw Dad. This time he got in. I started the engine, turned west, and drove. For the next 20 minutes, the road kept proving the world had changed while Dad kept trying to find pieces of the old one. He named every farm we passed. He said who owned it, who used to own it, who borrowed his tools and never returned them, whose son had gone to prison, whose daughter had moved to Arizona. Some houses were dark, some had lights, One had a pickup burning in the driveway, while a man sprayed it uselessly with a garden hose. Another had 3 people on the roof while figures moved below, bumping against the porch posts and front steps. Dad reached for the door handle at that house. I locked the doors from the driver controls. He looked at me. "You're serious," he said. "Yes. Those people need help." So did the family at the bridge. So did Mrs. Keene. So does Ruth. So do 100 people between here and the state line. Then what kind of men are we if we leave everyone? Alive ones, maybe. He looked out the window. The porch figures fell behind us. The people on the roof waved a flashlight until the road curved. The next town west was called Dalebrook, smaller than Pine Hollow. 1 grocery store, 1 diner, 2 churches, 1 volunteer fire station, 1 gas station with a repair bay. Dad said the fire station might have fuel. I told him we were not stopping unless the truck needed it. 5 minutes later, the fuel gauge dropped below half. He saw me look. "Should have taken the generator," he muttered. Wouldn't help. Could trade it. Could break our backs carrying it. You have an answer for everything now. I have fewer answers than I had 3 hours ago. That quieted him. Dalebrook's main street was blocked by a delivery truck jackknifed near the grocery store. People had tried to get around it by driving onto the sidewalk. 2 cars were stuck nose to nose between a street lamp and the storefront. The grocery windows were broken. Cans rolled across the pavement. A man in a black jacket came out with a bag of dog food under each arm, saw our headlights, dropped 1 bag, and ran. Dad said, "Take the alley behind the diner." I turned before he finished. The alley was narrow, lined with trash bins and stacked pallets. Halfway through, a woman stepped out from behind the diner with a flashlight and both hands raised. I stopped. Dad said, "Window only." I lowered it a crack. She was maybe 40, wearing a waitress apron over a winter coat. Her name tag said Paula. Behind her stood a teenage boy holding a plastic crate full of canned goods. "Please," she said. "Which way are you headed?" "West," I said. "Can you take my son?" "No." The answer came out too quickly. Her face changed in the flashlight beam. Not anger yet, shock first. Dad turned toward me. "Cole." "No." The boy stared at the ground. He had a smear of flour on his cheek and a backpack hanging from one shoulder. Paula stepped closer. "Just him. I can't get my car started. My sister's in Fairview. He knows the address." "There's no room," I said. Dad looked at the space behind the seat. There was room if we dumped the photo bin and gear. There was room if we decided a stranger mattered more than the things we had saved. There was not enough room for all 3 adults and the boy to sit safely, but safety had already lost its clean shape. Paula saw Dad looking. "Please, he's 16. Dad said quietly, "We can make room." I turned to him. "And when his aunt isn't there? When the roads are blocked? When he panics? When his mother changes her mind and tries to climb in too? What then?" Paula heard every word. Her face hardened into something I understood. "You came for your father," she said. I did not answer. "But mine doesn't count. That is not what this is. That is exactly what this is." Dad opened his door. I grabbed his sleeve. "Don't." He pulled away and stepped out. Paula took a step back. The boy lifted the crate a little, not a weapon, but something between him and us. Dad raised both hands. "Nobody's hurting you." I got out too because he had forced the choice. The alley seemed too narrow now. The truck engine idled loud behind me. On Main Street, something crashed inside the grocery store. "We can take him to the edge of Fairview," Dad said. I looked at him. "You don't get to promise that." He's a kid. He's taller than me. He's 16. Paula's mouth moved. She was trying not to cry in front of him. The boy said, "Mom, don't." That broke something in her more than any begging would have. She turned toward him. "Shut up, Aaron." "Mom." I said, "Shut up." Down the alley behind them, another figure appeared. It stepped into view near the diner's back door. A cook, maybe. White shirt, dark apron, head tilted wrong. Paula did not see him at first. Aaron did. "Mom," he said again, sharper. The cook moved faster when he saw us. Dad saw him and stepped toward Paula. "Get back." Everything happened in a messy, practical scramble. Paula turned and screamed. Aaron threw the crate. Cans hit pavement and rolled under the truck. The infected cook tripped over the crate, went down on one knee, got up again. I grabbed Dad by the back of his jacket and pulled him toward the truck. Paula and Aaron ran toward the diner door. "No!" I shouted. "Not inside!" Paula ignored me. She yanked Aaron through the back entrance and slammed it. A second later, something hit the inside of that same door. Maybe the cook. Maybe something already in the diner. The door rattled in its frame. Dad tried to go after them. I blocked him with both hands against his chest. No. They went inside. They chose. We can pull them out. With what time? The infected cook recovered and came at us again. I swung the tire iron low enough to strike his shin. He fell hard, hands scraping pavement. Dad flinched at the sound. I shoved him into the passenger seat and ran around the hood. A can of tomatoes had rolled under the brake pedal area from the alley floor. I kicked it away, climbed in, and hit the gas. The truck lurched over scattered cans. In the side mirror, the diner door shook again. Paula shouted something from inside. I could not hear words. Dad turned in his seat until the alley entrance vanished behind us. "You could have stopped," he said. "I did stop. That was the mistake." "You don't know if they got out." "No, I don't. You don't even want to know." That was unfair, and he knew it. I kept driving because the alley opened onto a side street, and a group of people was running across the intersection ahead. Some carried bags. Some carried nothing. Two looked back while running, which told me enough. Dad said, "You're making yourself hard." "I'm making myself useful." "You think those are the same?" "I think tonight they overlap." We cleared Dalebrook through a residential road lined with maple trees and parked cars. At the last house before the fields, a boy stood in a second-floor window, watching us pass. His face was pressed close to the glass. No adult stood behind him. Dad saw him too. Neither of us spoke. The truck started running hot 10 miles later. At first, the temperature needle climbed only a little. Dad noticed before I did. "Ease off," he said. "I'm doing 40. Then do 30. I checked the mirror. Empty road behind us. I slowed. The needle kept climbing. Dad leaned forward. "Pull over at the next farm entrance." "No. Pull over before the head gasket goes." "How long?" "Depends what's wrong." That is not comforting. Machines don't care about comfort. The needle moved higher. I swore and pulled into a gravel entrance beside a field gate. Dad was out before the truck fully stopped. He lifted the hood with a rag from his pocket, steam rising around his hands. I scanned the road in both directions. Nothing close. Far back, a faint orange glow marked Dalebrook. The sky above it flickered. Dad bent over the engine bay. "Upper hose is soft. Clamps loose. Lost coolant." "Can you fix it?" "With what?" "You're Arthur Voss. You fix everything with profanity and old wire." He gave me a look over the hood. "Get the water jugs." We had 2 gallons in the cab and 1 half-empty bottle in my backpack. Dad tightened the clamp with a screwdriver from his truck door pocket, wrapped the hose connection with rescue tape from his toolbox, and poured water into the radiator slowly while the engine ticked and hissed. His movements were efficient now. No denial, no wasted motion. This was the version of him I had come for, the man who knew what to do when something physical failed. I stood beside him with the tire iron, watching the road. A pickup appeared from the east. No headlights at first. Then parking lights. It rolled slowly, stopped 50 yards away, and idled. Dad saw it. "Chiu, get in." "You done?" "Enough." "Enough for how long?" "Longer if you stop asking." The pickup stayed still. I moved to the driver door. Dad lowered the hood carefully, not slamming it. Noise mattered now. He climbed in with the shotgun case across his lap, still zipped, still unloaded, if he had told the truth. The pickup flashed its headlights once. I started the truck. Dad said, "Don't wait." I backed out fast, gravel spitting under the tires, and headed west. The pickup followed. At first, I told myself it might just be another driver using the same road. Then I took a left, Dad suggested without signaling, and the pickup took it too. I sped up. It sped up. I slowed near a sharp bend. It slowed. The distance stayed the same. Dad opened the glove box, took out a box of shells, and started loading the shotgun with calm hands. "You said it was unloaded." It was. "You kept shells in the glove box?" "Separate is safer." "Tonight safer is loaded?" "Tonight safer is ready." I did not argue. The road ahead split near an old grain elevator. Dad pointed right. "Take the lane by the elevator." "Dead end?" "Not anymore. They punched it through for logging." The pickup behind us sped up when I turned. Maybe the driver knew the road. Maybe he thought we had made a mistake. The lane narrowed into gravel and then dirt. Trees crowded both sides. Branches scraped the truck. The temperature needle held just below the danger mark. I kept one eye on it, one on the road, one on the mirror, and that was one more eye than I had. Dad rolled down his window halfway. "What are you doing?" I asked. "If they get close." I discourage. "You ever shoot from a moving truck?" "No." "Great." "You ever run from thieves during a plague?" "No." "Then we're both learning." The lane dipped through a wash. Water splashed over the tires. The pickup behind us hit the dip too fast and slammed nose down, sparks snapping under its front end. It did not stop. It kept coming, closer now. Ahead, fallen branches blocked half the lane. "Go left edge," Dad said. "There's no left edge." "There is if you believe in scratches." I went left. Branches clawed down the passenger side. The mirror folded inward with a crack. Dad ducked away from the window but kept the shotgun angled down. The pickup tried to follow, hit the branches harder, and lost more speed. Then the lane opened onto a field road. I accelerated. The truck coughed. "Don't you do that," Dad said. "Well, not to me." The engine coughed again. "Fuel?" I asked. "No, heat. Maybe water hit the belt. Keep steady." The pickup behind us regained speed. It was close enough now that I could see 2 people in the cab and a third shape in the bed. The person in the bed held something long. Not a rifle, a crowbar or pipe. Good enough to ruin us if we stopped. Dad leaned partly out the window and fired one shot into the air. The sound cracked over the field. Birds burst from the tree line. The pickup swerved. It did not stop. "Dad!" Didn't aim at them. They don't know that. They know enough. The pickup slowed for 3 seconds. Then it came again. Dad lowered the shotgun. They're committed. Any useful road ahead? Barn Lane on the right. Sharp. How sharp? Very. The barn lane appeared almost too late. 2 ruts through tall weeds beside a collapsed fence. I turned hard. The rear of the truck swung. Dad hit the door with his shoulder. The photo bin slammed behind the seat. The pickup behind us overshot the turn, braked, reversed badly, and tried to follow. The barn lane ran behind an abandoned dairy farm. A long barn stood ahead, roof partly fallen, doors open on both ends. Dad said, "Through it." "What?" "Through the barn." "No." "Lane behind it connects to the north road. That roof is half down. Then drive under the half that isn't." The truck bounced over ruts and old boards. I aimed at the open doorway. Inside the barn, darkness swallowed the headlights for 1 second. Then wooden posts and empty stalls jumped into view. I kept the wheel straight. The floor was dirt packed hard from years of use. Something skittered away under the light. The roof sagged low on the left. I stayed right. Dad pulled his elbows in. We burst out the far door into weeds and mud. The rear tires spun, caught, and climbed onto the track beyond. Behind us, the pickup entered the barn too fast. A crash followed. Wood cracked, metal scraped. The sound kept going for too long, then stopped. I did not look back until we reached the north road. The pickup did not come out. Dad exhaled through his nose and set the shotgun down carefully. I drove another mile before speaking. "You just told me to drive through a barn." "Worked. That is not a plan." "It was a plan with poor materials." I hated that I laughed. It came out short and tired, but it was real. Dad heard it and looked away. Maybe relieved, maybe ashamed, maybe both. The north road was clearer, but the truck was not. The temperature needle climbed again. The engine lost power on hills. We had escaped Dad's town, the bridge, Dalebrook, the pickup, and his own bad decisions. But the vehicle was paying for every ditch, field, and desperate turn. "We need to stop before it cooks," Dad said. "We need distance. We need the truck. What's ahead?" "Old highway garage. County used it before they built the new one. Might have water, maybe tools. People? Maybe. Good people? County workers." That is not the same answer. He accepted that with a small nod. The highway garage sat behind a chain-link fence with one gate open. A low concrete building, 3 vehicle bays, a small office, a gravel lot full of weeds. 2 plow trucks were parked along the side. One had its hood up. A vending machine lay on its face near the office door. The place looked searched, but not burned. I drove behind the building, out of sight from the main road, and shut off the engine. The sudden quiet felt dangerous. Dad listened for a moment, then said, "No voices. No visible sick. No fresh vehicles." We sat another 10 seconds. Then I said, "We go in together. No wandering. Water, coolant if there is any. Maybe fuel if it's safe. 10 minutes." He looked at me. "What?" I asked. "You sound like me." "I'm sorry for both of us." This time he did smile a little. We stepped out with the tire iron and the shotgun. Dad loaded 2 more shells from his pocket and kept the barrel angled down. He did not carry it with drama. He carried it the way he carried a tool he wished he did not need. The office door was unlocked. Then inside smelled of dust, oil, and old coffee. A desk had been emptied onto the floor. A calendar still showed last month. A set of keys hung on a board behind the counter, most labeled with faded tags. Dad went straight to them. "Looking for what?" I asked. "Fuel cage, shop cabinet, maybe yard pump." I checked the hallway. Bathroom clear, break room clear. One locker open, work shirts gone. Another locker held rain gear and a pair of rubber boots. I took the rain jacket. It was too large, but warmth mattered more than fit. In the garage bay, Dad found 2 sealed jugs of coolant behind a cabinet nobody had bothered to open because a stack of old tires blocked it. He looked at me with quiet satisfaction. "Don't say it," I told him. "I wasn't going to." "You were." "I was." We filled the radiator properly. Dad checked the hose again, so tightened the clamp and rigged a better wrap with a spare piece of rubber he cut from an old mud flap. I held the flashlight. Through the open bay door, the road remained dark. A noise came from the office. We both froze. Not a crash. A small sound, a shoe scuff, then a whisper. Dad raised the shotgun. I lowered the flashlight beam. "Who's there?" I called. No answer. Another scuff. Dad gestured toward the side wall. I moved left, keeping distance from him so one person could not grab both of us. That was not something we discussed. It just happened. He noticed. His eyes flicked toward me with a quick approval that would have mattered more on any other night. A man stepped into the bay from the office hallway with both hands up. He was younger than me, maybe late 20s, wearing a county work jacket. His name patch said Derrick. He had a bandage wrapped around one forearm, stained but not soaked. His face was gray with exhaustion. "Don't shoot," he said. Dad kept the shotgun low but ready. "You bitten?" "No." "Show the arm." Derrick held it out. "Cut on sheet metal, I swear." "Anybody with you?" I asked. "My supervisor was. He left." "When?" "An hour ago. Maybe 2, I don't know." "Why didn't you answer when I called?" "Thought you were the men from the pickup." Dad and I looked at each other. Derrick saw that. "Black pickup?" "Dark," I said. 3 people. They came through here earlier, took fuel, took radios, asked who was alone. I hid in the salt shed. Dad lowered the shotgun another inch. "You know road conditions west?" Derrick nodded fast. "Fairview is blocked. State highway's done. There's a freight access road north of here. It gets you toward the river, but the bridge might be closed." "Which river bridge?" Dad asked. "Carmichael." Dad cursed. "What?" I said. "Old bridge, narrow. If it's blocked, we lose north." Derrick looked at our truck. "You heading out?" "Yes," I said. "Can I come?" There it was again. The question. The weight. The space behind the seat. Dad's eyes moved toward me, then away. He would not ask this one out loud. Not after Paula and Aaron. Not after the Bridge family. Not after I had dragged him away from every instinct he had. Derrick said, "I can work. I know roads. I know where the county fuel tank is." Dad's expression changed. Useful, skilled, local. Not a child. Not a helpless stranger. Someone who could improve our odds. I hated that my mind weighed him that way. But it did. "Any symptoms?" I asked. "No." "Fever?" "No." "Dizziness?" "No." "You got blood in your mouth or eyes?" "No." "Any contact with sick people?" He hesitated. Dad noticed too. Derrick swallowed. "A woman grabbed my jacket at the clinic. I pulled away. She didn't break skin." "Show your neck," Dad said. Derrick turned his collar down. No bite. No broken skin that I could see. I pointed to the truck. "You ride in the bed until we know. Not personal." He nodded. "That's fair," Dad said. "Cold back there." Derrick gave a weak smile. "Still better than the salt shed." We loaded the coolant, 2 tool rolls, a small gas can Derrick knew was hidden under a bench, and 3 road flares. Dad wanted to take a battery charger. I stared at him until he put it down. He wanted to take a full socket set. I let him. The line between useful and heavy had shifted. Before leaving, Derrick showed us a paper county map spread on the office wall. Red marker lines crossed several roads. Notes had been added in different handwriting. Clinic unsafe, bridge jammed, fire near Fairview, access road open. With a question mark. Dad studied it longer than I wanted. "We take this," he said. He pulled the map off the wall, folded it badly, and brought it with him. Derrick climbed into the truck bed with the road flares and a blanket from the office. Dad sat beside me in the cab. The shotgun rested between his boots. When we pulled out of the garage lot, a line of figures appeared on the road east of us. 4, maybe 5, walking unevenly toward the gate. One wore a reflective vest, another dragged something from one hand. None moved with purpose beyond us. Derrick knocked twice on the rear window. I already saw them. I turned north. The freight access road was rough but open. It ran behind warehouses and old rail spurs, then through scrubland where the county had once planned an industrial park that never happened. Dad held the map under the dome light and gave directions. Derrick tapped the roof from the bed when he saw debris or movement behind us. For the first time since leaving my apartment, we had a working group. That lasted 11 minutes. Near a rail crossing, a woman ran into the road. I braked hard. Derrick slammed against the cab with a dull thud. Dad cursed. The woman fell in front of the truck, not hit, but close enough that I saw both hands scrape the pavement. She wore hospital scrubs under a coat. A lanyard swung from her neck. Behind her, 2 children came out from behind a concrete barrier. 1 boy, 1 girl, maybe 8 and 10. Both carried backpacks. "No," I said before anyone else spoke. Dad looked at me. "Cole." "No." The woman struggled to stand. She held up one hand and pointed behind her. "Please, please, my car died." Derrick knocked on the rear window again, then shouted from the bed, "There's more coming from the tracks!" I looked past the woman. Shapes moved along the rail line, not fast yet, drawn by our engine, her voice, or both. Dad opened his door. I locked it. He turned on me with real anger. "Open it!" "No. Those are kids." "I know." "Open the damn door. We can't take everyone. We can take 3. Derrick is in the bed. You are in the cab. The space is gone." Then Derrick gets out. Derrick heard enough through the rear window. He shouted, "I'll get out if it's kids!" The woman reached the hood and slapped it with her palm. "Please!" The infected on the tracks changed pace. One stumbled down the gravel slope. Another followed. Dad grabbed the lock knob manually and yanked it up. I grabbed his wrist. He looked at me with open disbelief. "Let go." I did not. The woman came to my side of the truck. Her eyes went from me to Dad to the back seat area packed with the photo bin and supplies. "Please, just my kids. Please." The boy behind her said, "Mom, come on." The girl started crying without sound I could hear through the glass. Derrick jumped down from the truck bed. "Derrick!" I shouted. He grabbed the road flare from the bed and ran toward the children. "Move! Move!" Dad shoved my hand away and opened the passenger door. "Get the bin out." I had one moment to decide again. This one was worse than Paula, worse than the bridge because we were not boxed in yet. We could help. The cost was real, but not immediate death. It was space, speed, supplies, exposure, trust. Every clean rule I made started to crack. I put the truck in park and got out. 30 seconds, I shouted. "No bags!" The woman sobbed. "Thank you." "No bags!" She turned and yelled at the kids to drop them. The boy obeyed, the girl did not. Dad pulled the photo bin from behind the seat and set it in the truck bed, then shoved the canvas grocery bag under his feet. Derrick lit the flare. Red light filled the road, harsh and smoky. He waved it between the infected and the children. The closest figure turned toward the light, arms reaching. The children climbed into the cab behind the seats in the small space where no one was meant to ride. The girl clutched her backpack to her chest. "No bags," I said again. She looked at me with wet, furious eyes. "My insulin is in here." I shut my mouth. "Keep it," I said. The woman tried to climb in after them. There was no room. She looked at the space, then at Derrick standing by the flare, then at the infected coming closer. "I'll ride in the back," she said. Derrick said, "With me." Dad climbed back into the cab. I got in and drove before everyone was fully settled. The passenger door slammed. Derrick and the woman hit the bed floor hard. The kids folded into the cramped rear space with the photo bin now exposed to cold air behind them. The girl said, "My brother's foot is under me." The boy said, "Why, move then." Dad turned. "Names." The woman shouted through the rear window, "Nora. Kids are Ben and Elise." Dad nodded once, as if that solved anything. I drove north with too many people, too little room, and my father watching me in a way I could not read. "You made the right call," he said quietly. "No," I said. "I made a call." He did not argue. The Carmichael Bridge was closed. Not officially. There were no cones, no police, no warning signs. It was closed because traffic had piled onto it from both directions and stopped forever. Headlights burned in empty cars. A box truck blocked one lane. A school bus sat halfway over the span with its rear door open. People moved between vehicles, some alive and thinking, others wrong. The river below was black except for strips of reflected light. I stopped before the last bend, far enough back that the bridge was visible through trees, but our truck was not obvious from the jam. Dad studied the map. Derrick climbed down, stiff and pale from the cold. Nora stayed in the bed with him, arms wrapped around herself. The kids remained wedged behind the seat. Elise checked her backpack over and over. Ben stared at the floor. "We can't cross there," Derrick said. "No," I said. Dad traced the map with one finger. "There's an old service bridge south." Derrick shook his head. "Private, locked gate. Gate can be opened. Concrete barriers." Dad looked at him. "You seen it lately?" "No." "Then we check." Derrick did not like that. Neither did I. But the map showed no better choice. West was blocked. South burned. East was what we had fled. North needed a river crossing. We turned around and took a maintenance road along the river. The truck crawled now, loaded too heavy, engine heat stable but never comfortable. Every bump made the children shift and complain. Nora kept whispering instructions through the rear window about Elise's medicine, about keeping her bag upright, about not letting her fall asleep. Dad listened and answered with more patience than he had shown me all night. After 2 miles, we found the service bridge. There was a locked gate. There were concrete barriers. There was also a gap where a vehicle had already knocked one barrier aside. Beyond the gate, the narrow bridge crossed low over the river. On the far side, a gravel lane disappeared into trees. Dad got out and examined the lock. I said, "Tell me you have a key." "No." "Tell me you have a quiet solution." "No." Derrick came up beside him with bolt cutters from the highway garage. Dad looked offended. "You had those?" Derrick shrugged. "County property." "Good man." The cutters snapped the chain on the second try. The sound carried across the water. We all went still. Nothing moved on the bridge. Nothing answered from the trees. I drove through the gate slowly. The bridge was barely wider than the truck. Old metal panels rattled under the tires. Halfway across, Elise started crying again, softer this time. Nora knocked on the rear window. "Is she okay?" Dad turned to the girl. "You good, honey?" Elise nodded without looking up. Ben said, "She hates bridges." Dad said, "Good, smart girl." The bridge ended in a hard turn. I made it, but the rear tire struck the edge of the last metal panel. A sharp crack sounded from underneath. The truck lurched. The steering pulled right. "No," Dad said. "What?" "Keep moving." The right rear tire thumped once, twice, then again in a steady rhythm, flat. I drove another 100 yards before the rim started grinding. "Stop," Dad said, "before you ruin the wheel. We can change it." Dad did not answer fast enough. I stopped in the gravel lane, trees thick on both sides, river behind us, blocked world ahead. "Dad," he opened his door. "Let me look." The tire was destroyed, not just punctured, torn along the sidewall, probably from metal on the bridge. Dad crouched beside it with the flashlight and said the word I did not want. "Spare." "You have one." He looked under the truck bed. Had one. The cable bracket under the bed hung empty. I stared at it. Dad closed his eyes. "You don't have a spare." "I had a spare." "When?" "Before somebody stole it." "When?" "I don't crawl under the truck every morning, Cole." I wanted to yell. I wanted to say half a dozen things that were true and useless. Instead, I looked back toward the bridge. The gate stood open. The cut chain hung loose. Anyone following the road could see our path. Derrick said, "County garage had tires." "Not here," I said. Nora climbed down from the bed. "What does this mean?" "It means we walk," I said. Dad stood. "No," I looked at him. "No? We don't abandon the truck. The truck abandoned us. I can pull a wheel from something." "From where?" There were vehicles at the bridge. On the other side, surrounded. "Maybe the service yard ahead. Maybe is killing us." Dad pointed at the map. "There's a farm access lane half a mile up. Could be equipment. Could be a trailer. Could be an old truck. And if there isn't, then we walk from there." I looked at Nora. She looked at her children. Derrick looked back toward the bridge and then at me. We had loaded too much into the truck because I broke my own rule. Now walking meant choosing what stayed behind. That was the consequence. Not moral, not dramatic, heavy. "We take only what we can carry," I said. Dad opened the truck bed and reached for the photo bin. I stopped him. His hand stayed on the plastic lid. "No," I said. "That's your mother's whole life. It weighs too much. We are not leaving it on the side of the road. We take the photos out, not the bin." His face changed with pain he had no place to put. I opened the lid before he could argue. Inside were albums, loose envelopes, letters, old birthday cards, Mom's nursing license, recipe cards, a dried corsage from a dance before I was born, ticket stubs, vacation photos, ordinary paper that had survived because Mom believed memory needed containers. Dad watched while I sorted fast and wrong. The lake photo album, wedding envelope, Mom's letters, nursing license, a stack of pictures with me in them, a stack with him in them. I packed them into my backpack and the blue folder until paper bent. Dad lifted the dried corsage. "We can't," I said. He held it for 1 second longer, then placed it back into the bin carefully. Nora helped without being asked. She took food, water, and medicine. Derrick took tools, bolt cutters, shotgun flares. Dad took the shotgun, shells, his medicine, and one wrench roll I told him not to take. Elise carried her insulin bag. Ben carried water and canned food in his backpack. I looked into the cab one last time. My father's truck smelled of oil, coffee, cold air, and dust from roads he knew better than anyone. Leaving it felt worse than leaving my SUV because this one belonged to him. It was not transportation. It was proof of who he still thought he was. Dad stood by the driver door with the keys in his hand. "Leave them," I said. He locked the truck. "Dad." He put the keys in his pocket. "Why?" "So if we come back, it's ours." I almost argued. Then I let him have it. We walked. The gravel lane climbed from the river through trees and then opened into pasture land. The farm access lane Dad remembered existed. The farm at the end of it did too. A white farmhouse, 2 barns, a machine shed, 3 trucks parked near a fuel tank. No lights, no smoke, no visible people. That did not make it safe. We approached from the tree line. Derrick carried one flare unlit. Dad had the shotgun open over his arm, not pointed. Nora kept both children behind her. I carried the tire iron and Dad's folded map. At the machine shed, flies buzzed around something near the side door. I did not look closely. We went around. The first truck had no keys. The second had keys but no battery response. The third was an old farm truck with a flat front tire and a manual transmission none of us loved except Dad. He opened the driver door, checked the ignition, and looked back at me. "Keys. Does it run?" "One way to find out. It has a flat. Front tire's low. I'm not dead. We can air it." "With what?" He pointed to the shed. "Compressor. Power? Maybe." Derrick had already found a generator near the workbench. Fuel in it. Dad's eyes lit with purpose. "See?" I held up one finger. "Do not say generator." He said it anyway. Generator. For the next 15 minutes, the farm became a repair job under pressure. Dad and Derrick worked with the practiced irritation of men who had fixed bad equipment for people who needed it yesterday. I stood at the shed door, watching the yard. Nora kept the kids low behind a stack of feed bags. The generator started on the 4th pull. Loud. Too loud. Dad connected the compressor. The hose hissed. The tire rose slowly. The farmhouse door opened. A man stepped onto the porch. He wore overalls and one boot. His face was shadowed under a cap. He held a rifle pointed toward the ground. "Get away from my truck," he said. Dad turned off the compressor. I raised both hands with the tire iron held sideways where he could see it. "We're leaving. Our truck died. We have kids." "I see what you have." Nora stepped partly out from behind the feed bags. "Please, we don't want trouble." The man looked at her, then at the children. His rifle stayed down but not forgotten. Dad stepped forward. "Sir, we can trade. Tools, coolant, shells." "I don't need shells. Everybody needs shells tonight." The man looked toward the road beyond the pasture. In the distance, something moved near the fence line. More than one shape. "You cut the bridge chain?" he asked. I hesitated. He nodded. "Thought so. When that road's going to bring every fool and every sick thing with legs." "We can close the gate behind us," I said. "Too late for that." "We'll go." "You'll go in what?" Dad glanced at the farm truck. The man's mouth tightened. "No." "We need it," Dad said. "So do I." "You got another vehicle. No battery." "I can fix that if you let us take this one." The man looked past Dad at the dark field again. His mind was working. I could see it. Not kind, not cruel, calculating. He was alone. or the house held someone he did not want seen. He had more vehicles than he could drive. The bridge road was now a problem because of us. He had children in front of him who were not his responsibility. From the road came a distant shout. Derrick turned. "We've got movement by the lane." The farmer lifted the rifle slightly. Dad said, You can stay and guard dead vehicles, or you can let me make one of them run and we all get out. I'm not leaving my land." Dad looked at him, and for a moment I watched him recognize his own reflection in another stubborn old man. It did not soften him. It sharpened him. "I said that an hour ago," Dad said. "My son dragged me out. I hated him for it. I'm still angry, but he was right." The farmer's eyes moved to me. Dad continued, "Whatever you think this place is worth, it won't pull you out when the road fills?" The farmer did not answer. A figure appeared at the far end of the lane. Then another. Behind them, flashlight beams bounced. Living people were coming too. Maybe following our route from the bridge, maybe running from something else. Nora whispered, "Please." The farmer made his choice with a curse. He tossed Dad a key ring. "You fix the blue truck battery. I take that. You take the farm truck. You leave me the shotgun shells." Dad caught the keys. "Done." "Dad," I said. He ignored me because the deal was already moving. He and Derrick ran to the blue truck. The farmer backed toward his porch, rifle up now, watching the lane. I helped Nora get the kids closer to the farm truck. Elise stumbled. Ben pulled her upright without being told. Dad had the blue truck's hood up. Derrick brought cables from the shed. The battery was not dead from age. A connection had corroded loose. Dad cleaned it with a pocket knife, tightened it, and told the farmer to try. The blue truck started. The farmer stared at it, then at Dad, grudging respect cutting through fear. "Shells," he said. Dad gave him half. Not all. The farmer noticed. Dad said, "You said shells. You didn't say all." For 1 second, I thought the farmer might raise the rifle. Then the shapes at the lane came closer, and he lost interest in pride. He climbed into the blue truck and slammed the door. We piled into the farm truck. It smelled of hay, mice, and old vinyl. Dad drove this time because it was manual and because I did not have time to learn it under pressure. I took the passenger seat with Elise half on the floor by my knees. Nora, Ben, and Derrick squeezed into the bed among old ropes and a cracked plastic water tank. The farmer went first, speeding toward the back pasture track. Dad followed. Behind us, people reached the yard. Some shouted for help. Some pounded on the machine shed. One man ran after us for maybe 50 yards before falling behind. Among the human voices came other sounds, lower and less organized. Dad kept his eyes forward. I watched him drive away from people asking for help. He did not look proud. He did not look clean. He looked alive and furious about it. The pasture track took us across rough ground toward a tree line. The blue truck bounced ahead, taillights shaking. Dad handled the farm truck with both hands, shifting hard, muttering at each gear. The front tire held. The engine sounded rough but strong enough. Elise held her backpack against her stomach and stared at the floor. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "You need medicine?" "Not yet." "Tell me before not yet becomes now." She looked up. "Okay." That small answer steadied me more than it should have. The farmer led us through a gap in a fence and onto a gravel road that did not appear on the county map. Dad laughed once under his breath. "What?" I asked. "Old logging road. I forgot it connected." "You forgot a road?" "I'm old, remember?" I remember when useful. The road climbed for miles. We saw no infected there, no people, no headlights behind us. The engine heat stayed steady. Fuel was above half. For the first time, we had something close to a chance. Then the farmer stopped. Dad stopped behind him and rolled down the window. The farmer leaned out of his truck. "Road splits ahead. I go south, my brother's place. You go north if you want the ridge." Dad nodded. "Gate? Leave it open or closed? Won't matter soon." The farmer looked at the kids in our truck bed, then back at Dad. "Your son was right," Dad said. "Don't tell him. He's difficult already." The farmer drove south without another word. Dad went north. We reached the ridge road just before dawn began to thin the dark. The sky turned gray over the trees. Not pretty, just enough light to show damage more clearly. Smoke columns in 3 directions, a line of cars abandoned along the lower highway, a field with cattle loose and walking through a broken fence. The world had not ended in one dramatic moment. It had lost one working piece after another, and now nobody could put the pieces back fast enough. Derrick tapped the rear window and pointed ahead. A small turnout overlooked the valley. Dad pulled in so we could check the map and let everyone move. Nora climbed down stiffly, then helped Elise and Ben. Derrick sat on the tailgate and rubbed his bandaged forearm. I checked it. The cut looked ugly but ordinary. No bite, no spreading discoloration, no certainty of anything, but enough to keep moving. Dad walked to the edge of the turnout and looked back toward the valley. Pine Hollow was not visible from there, but the smoke from that direction was. I stood beside him. For a while, neither of us said anything. Then he took the truck keys from his pocket. His own truck keys, the ones for the vehicle with the flat tire near the river. He held them out to me. I looked at them. "Why?" "Because I keep wanting to go back." I did not take them right away. He said, "For the truck, for the photo box, for Ruth, for Ellen, for the house, for every damn thing I can't fix." His voice stayed steady, but only because he forced it there. "I know," I said. "You don't. Not yet." "No, not yet." He looked at the keys in his palm. "If I keep them, I'll make another bad choice." I took the keys. That was the first time all night he admitted the real danger was not only outside us. Nora came over a minute later. "Where now?" Dad unfolded the map on the hood. The paper was creased, dirty, and torn at one corner. He traced the ridge road north to an old state maintenance route, then west toward a cluster of lakes and cabins. "This road gets us away from the main highway. There's a ranger station here. Maybe closed, maybe stocked. Past that, cabins, wells, wood stoves." "People?" Derrick asked. "Some." "Safe?" Dad looked at him. "No place is safe. Some places are less stupid." I said, "That's almost optimism." He ignored me, but the corner of his mouth moved. We ate quickly in the turnout. Peanut butter from the jar, crackers from Nora's bag, water in small amounts. Dad took his pills. Elise checked her blood sugar with practiced hands, while Nora watched every step. Ben asked if he could pee behind the truck and looked embarrassed that he had to ask. Derrick kept watching the road behind us. A car appeared below on the ridge road, then another, moving slow. Dad folded the map. "Time." We loaded again. This time nobody argued about space, nobody asked for comfort. Nora and Derrick rode in the bed. Ben squeezed behind Dad's seat. Elise stayed behind mine, backpack in her lap. Dad drove. I sat with the map and tire iron. The vehicles behind us stayed far back for 2 miles. Then one sped up. "Maybe just scared," Nora shouted from the bed. "Scared people still hit things," Dad said. The farm truck could not outrun much. It was old and loaded and never meant for this kind of flight. Dad knew it. I knew it. He looked at the map, then at the road. "Ranger station has a service gate," he said. "If it's open, we go through and lock it. If it's closed, then Derrick's bolt cutters earn their keep again." The road wound through dense woods. Dawn brightened the trunks and showed frost in the ditch. At any other time, I would have thought it was a quiet morning. That thought angered me. The woods did not care what had happened overnight. The road did not care. The birds had started making noise in the trees. Our lives were breaking, and the morning still arrived on schedule. The ranger station came into view around a bend. A small brown building with a flagpole, 2 parked utility vehicles, and a chain gate across the service road behind it. The front lot held 3 cars. One had its driver door open. Dad slowed. Bad. "Keep going to the gate," I said. A ranger stepped out of the station doorway. At least he wore the uniform. His shirt was torn open at the collar. His hat was gone. He turned toward the truck and started walking in a crooked line. Dad did not stop. The ranger reached for the driver door as we passed. His fingers scraped the paint. Nora shouted from the bed. Derrick struck the side of the truck twice, warning us about the cars behind. The chain gate was locked. Dad stopped inches from it. "Cut it." Derrick jumped down with the bolt cutters. I got out with him. The ranger had turned and was coming after us, slow but fixed. Behind us, the first pursuing car pulled into the station lot. 2 men got out, living, angry. One carried a metal bat. "Move!" Nora yelled. Derrick set the cutters on the chain. His first try slipped. The ranger came closer. The men from the car shouted for us to stop. The second try snapped one side of the chain, but not enough. Derrick repositioned. I moved between him and the ranger. "Hurry." "I am." The ranger reached for me. I used the tire iron to push him back. He stumbled, corrected, and came forward again. The men from the car were running now. Dad got out with the shotgun. "Dad, drive! Cut the chain!" The third try broke it. Derrick pulled the gate open. I shoved him toward the truck. Dad fired one shot into the dirt in front of the running men. They stopped hard, both raising their hands. The ranger did not react to the sound at all. That told all of us something. Dad backed toward the truck without taking his eyes off the men. "We don't want you." The man with the bat shouted, "Then leave the truck." Dad climbed in and slammed the door. I jumped in as he hit the gas. Derrick barely got into the bed before the truck rolled through the gate. Nora grabbed his jacket and hauled him down. I leaned out and pulled the gate shut as we passed. No, too far. Not possible. The gate stayed open. Dad saw me look back. Can't fix it. The service road climbed into forest behind the station. The pursuing men did not follow immediately. Maybe the warning shot worked. Maybe the ranger reached them. Maybe another choice found them before they made it. We drove deeper into the woods. The service road was narrow and rutted. Branches scraped both sides. Twice, Dad had to stop while Derrick and I moved fallen limbs. Once, we found a small washout and filled it with rocks enough to cross. Constant activity kept the group from breaking down. Nobody had room to think too far ahead. Lift this, watch that tree line, drink water, check the map, keep Elise's bag dry, listen for engines, listen for voices, listen for the dead. By mid-morning, the farm truck's fuel gauge dropped below a quarter. Dad noticed. Of course he did. "There's a maintenance yard near the lake road," he said. "Fuel? Maybe. Your favorite word?" "My accurate word." Nora knocked on the rear window. Elise needs a proper stop. I turned. Elise looked pale, irritated, and embarrassed. She did not want to be the reason we stopped. That made her more honest than most adults I had seen since sunset. "How long?" I asked. Nora said, 10 minutes. Dad scanned the road ahead. "Maintenance yard first, if it's clear. Then we stop." The yard was not clear. It sat in a clearing beside a gravel pit, with a fuel tank, a shed, and 2 old utility carts. It also held 6 infected workers in orange vests moving aimlessly between equipment. One had a hard hat still strapped under his chin. Another dragged a shovel by its handle, metal scraping gravel. Dad stopped at the tree line. "We need fuel," Derrick said from the bed. "We need not to walk into that," I said. Dad studied the yard. "Tanks on this side. Hose might reach if we pull close. With 6 of them there. They're slow. Until they aren't." Derrick leaned through the rear window. "I can draw them to the far side with a flare." Nora said, "No." Derrick looked at her. "I didn't ask. You should have." Dad watched the infected for another few seconds. Flare rolls downhill. Gravel pit slopes behind the shed. We light it. Throw it left. Wait for them to follow. Truck goes to tank. 1 person fuels. 1 watches. "Who fuels?" I asked. Dad raised his hand. "No," I said. "I know the pump." "You also move slower than me." "I know the pump," Derrick said. "I'll watch." I looked at Nora. "You and the kids stay low in the bed." She nodded once. The plan was bad. It was also the first plan that matched our situation. We needed fuel. We had a distraction. The infected were spaced out. The yard had 2 exits. Waiting would not improve it. Derrick lit the flare and threw it hard to the left. It landed near the gravel pit, hissing red smoke. 3 infected turned at once. 2 followed after several seconds. The 6th stayed near the fuel tank, head moving back and forth. Dad drove in fast, stopping beside the tank. I jumped out before the truck settled. Derrick came with me. Dad opened his door. "Stay," I said. He pointed at the pump. "Handle has a lock clip. Prime lever under the housing. Don't yank it or it sticks." "Say that earlier." "I'm saying it now." The lone infected near the tank turned toward us. Derrick moved to intercept. He did not attack first. He shouted and waved his arms, drawing it away. It followed him. Good. I grabbed the fuel hose, found the lever, and worked it the way Dad shouted through the open window. Fuel flowed into the truck tank. Too slow. Everything important moved too slow. The flare burned near the gravel pit. The infected clustered around it, reaching into smoke and light. One lost footing and slid down the slope. Another followed badly and fell. The distraction worked until it did not. The worker with the shovel turned away from the flare and toward the sound of fuel pumping. "Coal," Dad warned. "I see it." "Half tank is enough." "No, it isn't. It is today." The worker came closer. Derrick was still leading the other one away. Nora had both kids flat in the bed. Dad opened his door again. "Stay in," I snapped. He stayed, but he lifted the shotgun. The fuel pump clicked and sputtered. I did not know if the tank was empty or the pump had lost prime. Half tank. Just over. Enough today, as Dad said. I pulled the hose free, spilled fuel down the side of the truck, and shoved the nozzle back. The worker with the shovel reached me. I backed away. Its hand caught the sleeve of the borrowed rain jacket. I slipped out of the sleeve instead of fighting the grip, leaving the jacket in its hand. Dad fired once through the open passenger window, not at its head, at the gravel near its feet. The blast knocked dust up and made Nora shout. The infected did not care. But Derrick looked over, saw the problem, and ran back. I grabbed the tire iron from the truck step and shoved the worker back with it. Derrick hit it from the side with the bolt cutters, knocking it to the ground. We climbed into the truck while it rolled onto its hands. Dad drove. The farm truck fishtailed out of the yard, fuel sloshing, everyone shouting at once. Behind us, the flare died in the gravel pit, and the infected turned toward the engine. We did not stop until the lake road. By then, nobody had much left to say. The lake cabins were supposed to be the answer. That was the danger of reaching any place you hope will be safe. Your mind starts furnishing it before you arrive. I pictured a locked ranger cabin, a wood stove, canned food, a hand pump, maybe a boat. Dad pictured tools, a radio, a place where roads narrowed and he could think. Nora pictured a room where her children could sit without being folded into the floor of a truck. Derrick pictured anything that was not a salt shed, a truck bed, or a road full of people choosing under pressure. The first cabins were empty and stripped. Doors open, cabinets emptied, mattresses dragged, fire pits cold. One cabin had a note taped to the door. Gone north. Do not follow if sick. Another had a broken window and muddy handprints on the sill. Dad said nothing when he saw them. At the third cabin, we found a working hand pump outside and a locked door. Derrick checked the window. No movement. Dad knocked anyway. I looked at him. He said, "People deserve one warning." Nobody answered. We forced the door with a pry bar from the farm truck. Inside was small, cold, and simple. Table, 4 chairs, wood stove, 2 bunks, a cabinet with 3 cans of beans, salt, tea bags, matches, and mouse droppings. Not a home, not a fortress. Enough for a pause. We did not pretend it was more than that. Dad and Derrick checked the perimeter. Nora treated Elise and made both kids eat. I closed curtains, checked the back room, found a broom, and swept glass away from the floor near one window. Constant activity, small control. That was all we had. Dad came back in, carrying an armful of firewood from the porch stack. "We can stay until dark," he said. "No longer?" He shook his head. "Too close to the road. Too easy to find. Good water, though." Nora looked at her children. "They need sleep." "We all do," Dad said. "In shifts." I expected him to argue for staying, for fortifying, for turning the cabin into one more object he could fix and defend. He did not. That told me more than any apology. We ate beans cold because smoke from the stove might show through the chimney. Dad hated that. He held the can in one hand and stared at the stove with personal resentment. "Food is food," I said. "Hot food is better food. Living people can be picky tomorrow." He scraped beans from the can with a plastic spoon. "You've become unpleasant. You raised me. Not this unpleasant." For a little while, the cabin held quiet human sounds. Elise sleeping on the lower bunk. Ben sitting on the floor by his mother, fighting sleep and losing. Derrick washing his cut with boiled water cooled in a mug. Dad cleaning the shotgun at the table with slow, careful hands. Me sorting Mom's rescued photos into a dry grocery bag because my backpack had fuel on one strap and mud on the other. A photo slipped free. Mom standing in Dad's garage holding a wrench, laughing at whoever took the picture. Dad saw it from across the table. "She hated that picture," he said. "Why?" Said her hair looked flat. It did. He smiled down at the shotgun parts. "She threw a rag at me after I took it." I looked at the photo again. Mom alive in a garage full of tools and dust. Not a saint. Not a memory polished into something fake. A woman annoyed by a camera, laughing anyway. Dad set the cloth down. I shouldn't have used her name on the phone, he said. No. I know. That was the apology. With him, you learned to hear the shape of it. I accepted it without making him say more. I shouldn't have grabbed the wheel, he added. No, you shouldn't have. That could have killed us. Yes. He nodded, eyes on the table. I keep thinking if I make one more stop, it'll prove I'm still the man people called when things went bad. You're still that man. No, not the way I was. I did not answer too fast. He needed truth, not comfort. You were useful all night, I said. You got us through roads I didn't know. You fixed the truck. You got us the farm truck. You kept Elise calm. But every time you tried to save the old version of your life, you almost got us killed. He took that without flinching. That's fair. It's strict. It's fair. Outside, a bird hit the cabin roof and scratched along the shingles before flying off. Everyone looked up. Ben woke enough to ask what it was. Nora told him it was nothing. For once, nothing was true. We rested in turns through the afternoon. Not real sleep for me. More like sitting with my eyes closed while sounds sorted themselves around me. Wind in trees. Derrick shifting near the door. Dad breathing through his nose in the chair by the table. Nora whispering to Elise. Once far away, an engine. Once closer, a single shout that ended without echo. Nobody went to check. That decision no longer needed a meeting. Near sunset, Derrick found an old battery radio in a drawer. Dad worked the corroded springs with the tip of his knife and got it running with batteries from a flashlight. Most stations were static. G1 emergency channel still broadcast a recorded message. Then a live voice cut in, weak but clear enough. State Emergency Management Relay. If you are west of Mercer and south of Carmichael, avoid primary roads. Temporary evacuation point established at Red Quarry Fairgrounds. Repeat, Red Quarry Fairgrounds receiving civilians until capacity is reached. Bring essential medication only. No pets larger than can be carried. Armed personnel on site. Medical screening required. The message repeated. Nora closed her eyes. Fairgrounds. Dad looked at the map. 30 miles. Roads? I asked. Bad. Better than staying? He looked around the cabin, the broken window, the weak door, the limited food, the children, the road behind us. Yes, Derrick said. So Fairgrounds could be overrun by the time we get there. It could, I said. Nora looked at me. But it's a place with medical screening. For Elise, for Derrick's cut, for Dad's blood pressure, for all the things that did not pause because the world was collapsing. Dad folded the map. We leave before full dark. Use the Lake Road north, then cut west on Forest Service. Avoid towns. Nobody objected. Before we left, Dad walked behind the cabin alone. I followed after half a minute and found him standing near the woodpile, looking at the darkening trees. Don't start with Ruth, I said. I wasn't. I waited. He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out one photo, the one of Mom in the garage. He must have taken it from the table. I'm keeping this one on me, he said. Okay. If we lose the bag, I want one. Okay. He put it back in his pocket and buttoned the flap. Then he looked at me. You came back when I told you not to. Yes. That was stupid. Yes. You saved my life. Yes. He nodded. All three can be true. I looked at the trees because that was easier than looking at him. Yeah, I said. I'm learning that. We left the cabin cleaner than we found it, which was Dad's doing. He stacked the empty cans by the door, closed the cabinet, and latched the window that still had a latch. It was absurd. It was human. I did not stop him. The road to Red Quarry took most of the night. We passed through stretches of dark forest where nothing moved and open rural roads where everything seemed to move at the edge of the headlights. Infected in ditches, living people hiding from our engine. Cars burned down to frames. A church parking lot full of tents already abandoned. A school bus with curtains hung inside the windows and a hand-painted sign reading "Full Keep Moving." Once we saw a military helicopter cross low over the ridge with no lights except one red blink. It did not turn toward us. Dad drove until his hands started making small mistakes. Not shaking, just slower corrections. I noticed because he had taught me to notice. I made him pull over behind an empty roadside fruit stand and switch seats. "I can keep driving," he said. "I know." "Then why switch?" "Because keeping going until failure is one of your favorite bad habits." He stared at me, then got out and switched. The farm truck was rough, but I managed. Dad talked me through the clutch without mocking me too much. That counted as tenderness from him. Derrick rode up front for an hour while Nora slept in the bed beside the kids under the blanket. He pointed out turns from the map and told me what he knew about the fairgrounds. Open fields, livestock barns, chain fencing, 2 wells, big parking lots. Not perfect, better than a cabin. Around midnight, we reached a ridge overlooking Red Quarry. The fairgrounds lights were on, real lights, not fire, not random headlights, floodlights over the entrance, vehicles parked in rows, people moving in lines, a roadblock with reflective signs and armed personnel in actual uniforms. For a moment, nobody spoke because hope had become something dangerous to touch. Then we saw the line of cars stretching toward the gate. Hundreds. Dad said, "Fuel?" "Below quarter." Derrick looked at the line. "So we'll idle dry before we reach the gate." Nora sat up in the back. "Can we walk in?" "Maybe," I said. Dad studied the fields beside the road. "There's an old livestock entrance on the east side. Might be foot traffic." "Official?" "No." "Dangerous?" "Yes." Everything was yes now. We parked behind an equipment shed half a mile from the fairgrounds. Not hidden enough. Hidden enough for a few minutes. We packed again, lighter this time because practice had made us crueler with objects. Food, water, medicine, documents, insulin, shotgun, bolt cutters, photos, map, no tools beyond what fit in pockets. Dad left the wrench roll on the seat without me asking. I noticed. He saw me notice. "Don't get sentimental." "Wouldn't dare." We walked through a field toward the eastern fence. The fairgrounds noise grew clearer. Engines, voices, loudspeakers, babies crying, dogs barking despite the rule, orders repeated through bullhorns. Somewhere near the main entrance, someone screamed, and a whole section of the crowd surged before armed personnel forced it back into lines. The east livestock gate was locked with a chain. A hand-painted sign read, "Staff only, no guards, no line." Also, no guarantee anyone inside would accept us entering that way. Derrick lifted the bolt cutters. "Wait," I said. I looked through the fence. The livestock barn sat 50 yards inside. Beyond them, the main screening tents. If we cut in, we might be treated as a threat. If we went to the main line, we might spend the night exposed with too little fuel and 2 exhausted children. Dad said, "We announce ourselves." "How?" He pointed to a floodlight pole near the barn. "Shooting camera." Of course he noticed the camera. Dad stepped to the fence, raised both hands and shouted toward the pole. "Family with children, medical needs. We're at the east livestock gate." We are not forcing entry unless told. We need instructions." Nothing happened. He shouted it again. A minute passed. Then a flashlight beam swept from the barn toward us. 2 uniformed men came around the side with rifles angled low. Behind them walked a woman in a reflective emergency vest with a clipboard. "Step back from the gate," she shouted. We stepped back. "Any bites?" "No," I said. "Any fever?" "No known fever." "Any injuries?" Derrick raised his bandaged arm. "Cut. Sheet metal. No bite." The woman looked at Elise. "Medical need?" "Diabetes," Nora called. "She has insulin. Needs refrigeration soon." The woman spoke into a radio. We waited in the field, hands visible while the fairgrounds buzzed behind her. The 2 armed men watched us with tired, practical eyes. Not cruel, not friendly. Done with surprises. Finally, the woman nodded to one man. He unlocked the gate from inside. "One at a time," she said. "Hands visible. Bags stay closed until inspection. If anyone lies about exposure, everyone in the group is removed." Nobody argued. We entered one at a time. Inside the fence, the ground felt no safer under my boots. Just controlled. That was enough. Medical screening took 40 minutes. Temperature checks, light in the eyes, questions repeated by different people to catch lies. Derrick's bandage removed, wound cleaned, rewrapped. Elise taken with Nora to a medical tent, where a nurse promised refrigeration if the generator stayed running. Ben given a bottle of water and a granola bar. Dad's blood pressure checked. Too high, unsurprisingly. He told the medic the machine was dramatic. The medic told him to sit down. He sat because she sounded like Mom for half a second. They gave us wristbands. Yellow for cleared but monitored. Not green, nobody was green anymore. The fairgrounds had rules posted everywhere. Stay in assigned zones. No open flames. No weapons outside check-in. Report symptoms immediately. Do not leave after intake without authorization. All vehicles subject to search. No rumors, no fighting, no exceptions. Dad surrendered the shotgun at the weapons table with visible pain. The deputy tagging it said, "You'll get it back if transfer happens." Dad said, "You don't believe that?" The deputy looked at him. "No, sir." Dad nodded once and let it go. They assigned us space in a livestock barn that had been cleared and lined with cots. The air smelled of hay, bleach, sweat, and portable toilets. Families sat in clusters, some silent, some praying, some arguing in whispers. A boy played cards with an old woman near the wall. A man patched a backpack with duct tape. A woman wrote names on her child's arm with permanent marker. Nora and the children got a cot near the medical side. Derrick got sent to a monitoring area for wounded but cleared arrivals. Dad and I got 2 cots near the far wall under a sign that once labeled goat pens. He looked at the sign. "Goats had better accommodations," he said. I sat on the cot and set my backpack between my feet. For the first time in nearly 24 hours, nobody was asking me to drive, choose, cut, push, leave, stop, or decide who counted. That should have brought relief. Instead, every person I had passed found space in my head. The woman at the fake roadblock, the family at the bridge, Paula and Aaron at the diner, Ruth somewhere between pharmacy and home, Mrs. Keene at Dad's back door, the farmer driving south, the people who reached the farmyard too late. I had saved my father and brought in strangers I first refused. Both truths sat there without cleaning each other. Dad lowered himself onto the cot beside mine. He looked smaller without his shotgun, truck, house, and map in his hands. Then he took the folded map from his jacket, smoothed it on his knee, and checked our route again out of habit. "You can stop navigating," I said. No. We're inside. For now. I almost argued. Then I realized he was not denying reality anymore. He was preparing inside it. Fair enough. He reached into his pocket and took out Mom's garage photo. He looked at it once, then handed it to me. You keep it tonight, he said. Why? Because if I wake up stupid and try to go back, I don't want to take her with me. I took the photo and slid it into the blue folder. You won't go back, I said. He looked toward the barn doors, where new arrivals were still being processed under floodlights. I might want to. I know. You stop me. I will. He nodded. Good. Around us, the barn kept moving. Volunteers carrying blankets, a medic checking wristbands, to a deputy escorting a man outside after he refused screening, a mother cutting a sandwich in half for 2 kids. The world had not ended here either. It had just become smaller, stricter, and more honest about what it could not save. Dad leaned back against the wall and closed his eyes. After a minute, he said, "Thank you for coming." I looked at him, but his eyes stayed closed. "You're welcome. And you're still an idiot for doing it." "I know." "Good." He slept after that, not deeply, not safely, but his head tilted against the wall, and his hands finally opened on his knees. I stayed awake until dawn leaked through gaps in the barn siding. The fairgrounds loudspeaker crackled every few minutes with instructions. More vehicles arrived. More people begged at the gates. Somewhere beyond the fences, the infected reached the outer road in scattered groups and were turned away by barriers, noise, and men with orders. The system held for that morning. Maybe it would hold through the next. Maybe not. I watched my father sleep under a goat pen sign with mud on his boots and my mother's photo in my folder. And I understood the rescue had not ended when we reached the gate. Saving him was not one decision. It was going to be 100, maybe more. Stop him from going back. Make him take medicine. Let him be useful without letting him lead us into guilt. Remind him that leaving did not mean he loved anyone less. Remind myself of the same thing. The old world had trained him to stay, fix, help, and hold ground. The new one had punished him for every one of those instincts before sunrise. Chukar, I had gone back for my father after the outbreak started, because I thought love meant refusing to leave him behind. That part was true. It was also incomplete. Love also meant taking his keys, cutting down his choices when his pride got dangerous, letting him hate me long enough to survive the moment, driving past people whose faces would stay with me because one rescue could not become every rescue. When Dad woke, he looked around the barn, confused for 1 second before memory returned. He sat up, found me watching the entrance, and followed my eyes to the line outside. "Any change?" he asked. "More people. Fence holding?" "For now." "Food?" "Later." "Fuel?" "Not our problem yet." He rubbed one hand over his face, then reached for the map again. I almost told him to rest. Instead, I let him unfold it. We were alive. He was alive. The fairgrounds stood between us and the road. That was not victory. It was not safety. It was the first place where the night stopped chasing us long enough for the next decision to arrive. Dad tapped the map near the western exit. "If this place fails," he said, "we do not take the main road." I looked at the route under his finger. He was right. I hated that. Then I took the pencil from his pocket and marked it clearly, because being angry at him had never stopped him from being useful. Outside, another truck rolled up to the gate. The guards shouted instructions. A child cried. Someone called for a medic. The loudspeaker crackled, then repeated the rules again in the same exhausted voice. Dad looked at me. I looked back. No apology, no speech, no clean ending. Just the two of us sitting under the weak morning light. Alive because I had gone back. Alive because he finally left. And alive because both of us had done things we would have to carry from then on.